If you're in the workforce and you're staying up at night incredibly anxious about what's going on with AI, how is it going to impact your job, all of this noise around the economy, and let's not be remiss and say, hey, there's a lot going on in politics, but you're not alone. What if we could get inside of the head of some major CEOs to find out what are they thinking about the topic? What do they see as being the future of the workforce? And in this video, I'm going to do just that. There are three CEOs that I have been listening to, and they have talked about everything from remote work to inefficiency to the impact of AI on the workforce. And I want to take some time and unpack what that means for you as a worker, but also if you're in HR, what does that mean for our industry? Let's dig in. Hi, I am Trent Cotton, the human capitalist and an HR executive with about 20 years of experience. So I spend a lot of time with the C-suite, with senior executives, not just at my company, but across different industries. And I can tell you that one of the most hot topics out there is about the workforce. What is AI going to do with it? What do we need to start doing to upskill our employees? And so I thought it would be really interesting if we could almost dissect what's going on in the brain of some of today's biggest CEOs. The first one I want to talk about made quite the headliner in February. Actually, on I think it was February the 14th, a leaked audio of Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, put him front and center in this conversation. And in a way, I don't really think that he wanted to. I know if I were Jamie, I'd be pissed off knowing that this video got leaked, but hey, it gives us a very interesting insight into what's going on in the head of one of the world's largest banks. So let's listen in.
A lot of you were on the fucking Zoom and you were doing the following, okay? Looking at your mail, sending texts to each other about what an asshole the other person is. Okay, not paying attention, not reading your stuff, and if you don't think that slows down efficiency, creativity, creates rudeness and stuff, it does, okay? And when I found out that people are doing that, you don't do that in my goddamn meetings. You go to a meeting with me, you got my attention, you got my focus, I don't bring my goddamn phone, I'm not sending texts to people, okay? It simply doesn't work, and it doesn't work for creativity, it slows down decision making, and don't give me the shit that work from home Friday works. Every area should be looking to be 10% more efficient. If I was running a department of 100 people, I guarantee you, if I wanted to, I can run it with 90 and be more efficient. I guarantee you. I could do it in my sleep. And the notion, these bureaucracies, I need more people, I can't get it done. No, because you're filling out requests that don't need to be done. Your people are going to meetings they don't need to go to. Someone told me to approve some of his wealth management that they had to go to 14 committees. I am dying to get the name of the 14 committees. And I feel like firing 14 chairmen of committees. I can't stand it anymore. Now, you have a choice. You don't have to work at JP Morgan. So the people of you who don't want to work at the company, that's fine with me. I'm not mad at you. Don't be mad at me.
Now, look, his tone of voice, his word selection, I can't really be mad at because I appreciate somebody that has passion. Now, do I agree with everything that he said? No, but there is some truth in some of the points that he brought up. So I wrote a couple of them down. The first one that he talked about was multitasking during a meeting and all of this inefficiency that comes as a result of it. Think about the last meeting that you're in. It could be today or, earlier this week. It's probably on a video conference and you can see everyone multitasking, like no one's listening. And one of the things that just sends me into orbit is I go through and I actually, provide an update or we're talking about something. And then 5 minutes later, someone asks a question about a topic that we've already talked about. Like, put your stuff down and listen and engage. So how he said it, maybe it could have been a little bit more delicate. But I think, if you're running a very large organization and you're looking at, hey, you're putting everything in, not a lot of people are paying attention at meetings, it is a little frustrating. Is it the end of the world? No. Has it always been that way? Yes. All right. Even before technology, I know growing up in my career, we would always have a Monday morning meeting for all the managers and senior executives. And there was 5 of us that the meeting was from like 8 to 10 on a Monday. We would always go and get lunch after and do all the trash talk. So yeah, we weren't texting or instant messaging each other, all of this stuff. We would just go and do it on our lunch break. So this has always been around. I think that he kind of blew that part out of proportion, but there is something to be said for a lot of inefficiencies with the meetings. And he also brought up a very interesting point that this generation is being left behind socially. I'd love to see the data on that. I think that's just kind of someone that's been growing up in a different era, looking at the generation now and doing what every generation does, saying, they're going to be the death of the human race. I don't really see that. He also said something that was really interesting. He said that he feels that he could run a more efficient organization with 90% of what they have now. And that says a lot. All right. He verbalized what I think a lot of CEOs are looking at. There's a lot of different layoffs that are going on, and it's all because of AI. But let's face it, AI is not at the level where it can completely replace an entire employee. It's getting there. It'll probably be there in the next 18 months, but it's not there now. So there's a lot of noise in some of these layoffs. I think a lot of large companies are just trying to trim the fat that they got after the pandemic. Because let's face it, people were hiring just to put bodies in seats. And, now that the market has right sized itself, they're looking and going, hey, we don't really need this. Let's cut 10%. Let's cut 5%. Let's blame it on AI. So there's a lot of noise out there. All right. And he also talked about too many meetings. I think he mentioned one of his, what was it? One of his managers had 14 committee meetings. And I worked in banking for most of my career. They love committees. And I remember growing up, you call a group of birds a flock. You call a group of cows a herd. You call a group of buzzards a committee. And banks and large organizations, they love these committees. So there is a lot of inefficiency there. So I was kind of like, amen on that one. I hate meetings that are meeting just for the sake of meeting. And I think there's a lot going on out there that people are looking at being busy and associating it with being productive. So if you take away all of the superlatives, kind of the passion, I think we'll go with passion in his voice and word selection. If you strip all of that away, he is looking at how can he run a more efficient organization? How can he get rid of some of the waste that's going on? And he's just incredibly frustrated. Does it excuse some of the stuff that he said? No. But it does tell us a lot about where at least one of our CEOs who had the courage to say it, albeit getting a shit ton of flack for it, but at least he kind of put it out there. All right. So let's talk about another CEO.
I think labor markets are a lot more dynamic than we give them credit to, but at the same time, we should be clear-eyed about any displacement. So a couple of things that we can do. One is skilling. One good thing about this generation of AI is it actually reduces the learning curve, not increases the learning curve. So even for somebody displaced mid-career, you can pick up new skills faster, easier. So that's sort of one. The second thing it does is it's sort of, if the previous era was about information at your fingertips, I think of the AI era as expertise at your fingertips. The coolest examples I saw right here in India. In fact, it sort of incubated in MSR, and after that, the founder of Karya took it and created Karya, which is about taking AI jobs. These are new jobs that didn't exist around labeling data and what have you, that are now being essentially syndicated out to rural India, where women mostly are able to find wage support, better wages, 20x wages compared to what is the general wage for doing AI jobs. So I think we will have new jobs. We'll see your ability to go up the learning curve will be faster and better, and even better wage support for some of the things that are in the front line.
But in the short term, do you believe that we are actually going to see more job losses than we do see job creation? Because we've already started to see companies talking about restructuring on account of adopting AI.
Yeah, I think that what is happening, some of it is just adjustment. I think this is where I think, as I say, labor markets adjust, right? If you take software development, the reality is there is a need for more software developers all over the economy, not just in the tech sector. So that's where I think, if there is one sector that's getting quote unquote more efficient, some of the labor force in that sector will disperse more broadly, I think. So I think that, yes, I'm not at all saying that there is not going to be displacement. Like with any new technology, we've seen it. But I also am very optimistic that we even have both the policy tools and the actual tools to help us manage this transition.
All right, so we went from bombastic Jamie Dimon to a more balanced Nadella, who is the CEO of Microsoft. And I really like how he answered the question. It was truthful, but also some optimism. One of the first lines that I liked that he said was that the labor market is and always will be dynamic. And I think with a lot of the news that's coming out, is people are looking at the labor market as a straight line, and it's not. There are going to be market corrections. There are going to be labor corrections. This is part of the normal economy. Go back and look after the Industrial Revolution, after World War II, there was an adjustment in the workforce. We're just experiencing that, I think, at a more fast pace. And with the proliferation of social media, it is out in the open where I think before, maybe it happened in pockets and not everybody knew. There was something else that he said. AI reduces the learning curve. And he talked about in previous that, with websites and kind of everything going to the web and even with mobile, that it used to be bringing information to your fingertips or putting information at your fingertips. But with AI, it is putting expertise in your fingertips. And that to me is what's kind of exciting about all this stuff with AI. Before, if you wanted to level up and skill up, usually you needed to go back to school or you had to go through some kind of formal education. But now with AI and everything that's going on the internet, you have the ability to go and level up yourself. And if you are listening to this and you're in the workforce, a lot of times I hear employees say, well, the company didn't develop me. Let me be just abundantly, brutally honest with you. There is not a company on this planet who will invest in your development like you will. So if you want to take it to the next level or if you want to learn a new skill, there really is no excuse for not being able to go out and try and find that information yourself. Case in point, I'm not a developer. Whenever I look at code, my brain shuts down. All right. But over the last several months, I have been really trying to go out there and learn about AI, learn about agents, and how can we apply it in my organization to make things more efficient, to give people more opportunity to actually work on the human value add versus just moving processes or paper around. So, it takes some time, it takes an investment. But this investment, if you do it now, will pay off because you will be someone that people want in the workforce. Now, there's a cliche out there that is very true. I hate it. I hate cliches, but this one needs to be reset. AI is not going to replace your job, but someone who knows how to leverage AI will. So you can be on either side of that equation, and the decision is completely up to you. And Nadella actually reinforces that. He says it's time to upskill. It is time to look at the workforce and say, what are those skills that we're missing, and how do we get people into those new skill sets? It's also really interesting that he said short term, there's going to be a lot of labor adjustments. A couple of economists that I've talked to and people that I've had on the podcast, everyone has this notion that it's going to be at least another year, 18 months of turbulence before things level out and we start getting a line of sight on what are the new jobs that AI is going to bring about and who will be able to go into those roles. He gave an example that, yes, AI is changing everything, but there's still a need for more software developers, just different types of software developers. And I think that's true across any industry. Take recruiting as an example. There will be a need for recruiters, but not as they are today. I think recruiters in the future are going to be managing agents and really kind of focusing more on the advisory aspect of the role that they haven't been able to do up until now because of just sheer volume, awful applicant tracking system experiences, candidate experience was something that was just kind of thrown by the wayside. Now with agentic AI, they're going to be able to spend more time actually doing those advisory services. But a lot of the recruiters that are in the market today are not equipped to be able to work in the market of the future. Same thing for HR. A lot of the business partners out there, a lot of the HR professionals, I mean, let's face it, some love the processes. Some love saying because of policy, because of this, no, no, no. And businesses now have information and expertise at their fingertips that if you are not providing actual advisory value to your client, they're going to see you as being obsolete. So let's move on to the last CEO. This one came from Davos, which I believe was in January, and it is the CEO of Salesforce giving an indication to his peers, so a room full of CEOs, of where he sees the future going.
When you talk about this being the agents and agent force, what type of agents are you talking about?
Cheers. I'll say digital labor. Let's talk about that. I probably, this current CEO of Salesforce, the CEOs who are here today, these are the last CEOs who will only really manage a workforce of only human beings. We are really moving into a world now of managing humans and agents together. And because I'm using Agentforce, I just have that much more productivity. Now, I have 9,000 support agents. So I'm already thinking about how can I redeploy them as SDRs, as BDRs, as all these different salespeople, because they don't have as much to do because Agentforce is so productive for them. And that is what agents actually are.
I would have given a lot of money to kind of sit in the room from the stage looking out into the audience at some of the CEOs just to watch their faces. As he was saying, we're going to be the last group of CEOs that manage a human-only workforce. But I do love how he instantly kind of gave an example of the support force or support agent, I think that he said, and I've cut out part of the video, but he goes through and he talks about how with AI that they're able to handle a lot of the different support tickets that these 9,000 support agents normally were paid to do. So because they have an agent that's helping take off some of the workload, he's already thinking as a CEO, how do I redeploy them into other skill sets? And, moving someone that's in a support role into a BDR, like a sales type or sales outreach type of role, it makes sense. There's some transferable skills there. They have to be high on communication. They know the product, so you don't have to do any kind of product training. Maybe you just reinvest and spend some time teaching them the art of sales, the sales process, all those types of things. But I think it gives us a really unique insight into someone who is at the CEO level, who's very forward thinking, who's not thinking, how do I eliminate my workforce because I have agents, but how do I redeploy them into different worlds, different skill sets? And I think that is a conversation that needs to be had, and it needs to be led by HR, by senior executives. And if you're not having that conversation now, you and your workforce are going to be left behind. So let's go through and let's summarize, what does all of this mean for the worker, and what does all of this mean for HR? All right, first, let's talk about the workforce. Of all these three CEOs, what are some things that we can summarize and say, here's what's going on in the mind of the people that are actually running businesses? All right, so the first one is hybrid and return to the office they're going to continue to be the norm. This is not just a fad. This is not something that I think the workforce can rise up and change the mindset. CEOs are seeing that they want their team members in the office so they can lay eyes on them. They believe that it helps foster creativity. It helps with the efficiencies. There's science to support it and science to disregard it as well. So it just is what it is. And if you're holding out, like a couple of my friends are holding out for a remote only job, you're going to be in the job market for a while. So it's going to become the new norm. The next is CEOs are looking for efficiencies. Some are doing it the right way, like Mark from Salesforce. How can I leverage AI and redeploy my assets, my human capital, to do other things in the organization? Not everyone is that forward thinking. So if you are working in a department that there's a lot of redundancies in systems, in processes, in people, just understand you have a target on your back. No one else is going to tell you this. I will tell you this. You have a target on your back. So what you need to do is, rather than fearing AI, you need to try to learn how can you start leveraging AI and get ahead of it, be part of that change. And the next is that you need to start leveraging a lot of the free resources that are out there so you can level up. Remember what I said earlier? There is not a company on the planet who's going to invest in your development like you will. There are things like YouTube. There are just tremendous amounts of information out there that you can go ahead and start learning some of these new skill sets. I've done it. A lot of people that I know who are just trying to figure out like how to pivot in their career or pivot to another career have leveraged some of these free resources. and been able to scale up and start applying for some of the jobs that they really want to do. There is also going to be an adjustment period. We're in it right now. Again, a lot of economists, people way smarter than me, feel like we're going to see this turbulence over the next 18 months, but that we will get out of this adjustment. Your job is to make sure that when we come out of that adjustment, you are ready for one of these new jobs that I don't think any of us really know the number of jobs, the types of jobs, the titles of the jobs that are coming. But what you can do is go ahead and start getting ready. All right, so let me talk to my HR professionals out there. You need to be leading the conversation about how you're going to upskill the workforce. A lot of company executives, I think, just some of them are still in this delusion that there's some kind of aspect of this that's going to be a fad. You need to get ahead of that. So you need to start doing an audit of what are the skills they're going to need in the future against the skills that your current workforce has, and start working with your leaders on developing a plan to be able to upskill your employees. I would also suggest that you start leading the conversation about efficiencies in the organization. You may need to do an efficiency audit, work with some of your line managers, identify the processes. You can go through things like design thinking and lean. There's a ton of different methodologies out there to identify areas that could be consolidated, could be just made more efficient. I mean, there's no prettier way to say it. The other thing, a lot of HR people, I think, entered into HR thinking that it was going to be nice and fun and touchy feely. You're taking care of the employees, and that environment's gone. There's a lot going on with DEI. There's a lot going on with the return to work mandate. And there's a lot of pressure on corporate executives to start turning a profit. And I think that HR has really got to get more involved and develop that business acumen mindset a lot more than we have in the past. We're not going to be able to just come in and be the rah-rah cheerleaders. We're going to really have to step up our game and become the advisors that our companies need. And also, too, that our employees expect us to be as the voice of the employee. And I want to give you the same challenge that I give anybody in the workforce. AI brings expertise to your fingertips. So us being able to say, hey, I'm not a technologist, or I don't really understand technology, those excuses are going to go by the wayside. They're not going to be tolerated going forward. So you need to educate yourself on the impacts of agentic AI in your industry, in your market, on your employees. So the more educated you are, the better advisor you can be for your clients, and the better protector you can be for the workforce. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please share it with someone else, share the insights, leave some comments down below. Let's continue the conversation there. Like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.